Reading Thunderbirds 2086. Monday morning, 11:17. For most a normal day, unless you happen to be Commander-in-Chief of the International Rescue Organization. This is Great Uncle Warren. I've never been on this line before. For Dr. Warren Simpson is taking his first day off in nearly a year, showing his young nephew Skipper the sights. The monorail took in years to build, a bridge 250 miles long carrying a single airless tube, and in the frictionless vacuum the passenger cars shuttle along with colossal speed and perfect safety. In 10 years of operation, the monorail has never yet had an accident. In the episode The Peril of the Deep, and the Mozambique-Madagascar monorail is justly known as one of the wonders of the 21st century. Are we really going to be in Majunga in time for lunch, Uncle Warren? Should be, and then back to our ecology in time for bed. Others can come to view the monorail from the air in machines with a slightly less perfect record. Maybe total failure on all engines, nothing else for it. I am ejecting the passenger's pod. Parachutes below. Both passengers and crew float to a gentle landing. The plane itself does not. Uncle Warren, the tube's broken. Within minutes, signals had been flashed to International Rescue's Pacific Command Center, Arcology. It sounds bad, Gran. It is Dylan, but at least the plane passengers are already being picked up. And only one monorail car's gone down in the sea. But that car just happened to be carrying Commander Simpson and Skipper. Nobody seriously hurt, and the car stayed watertight so far, but we are wedged into this crevasse. Well, we will be okay, Skipper. We will keep the electronic lights on so we can be seen. And the Thunderbirds will pull us out of this. Don't you worry, I'll expect they'll bring us. Thunderbird 1, Thunderbird 13, and Thunderbird 14, all safely stowed aboard. Right then, stop the Mozambique channel. Weather's good, no problem getting there. The problems start after we arrive, and the first one's finding the car. Now with the speed it was travelling and the Agulhas current running south, I'd say we start looking about here. And soon off the coast of Madagascar, Thunderbird 4 underway, submerging to 800 fathoms. And following a computer-controlled course for half an hour, looks like we were right, Callan. There it is, right up ahead. We found it. Only trouble is, something else has found it too. A giant squid. That thing's putting so much pressure on the seals, they're starting to leak. It's not serious yet, but if we don't get out of this soon, maybe we can scare off that monster if we get in close. It doesn't look scared, Callan. No, it doesn't, does it? Okay, guys, hang on while I roll her over. And we'll see how it likes it when I turn on the ultra-incandescent lighting Trouse in its face. That did it, Callan. Right, and now we've got to move fast. The car's slowly filling with water. Everyone get up here at the top end. And it's jammed into those rocks with the emergency exit at the bottom end. Okay, this is what we do, Dylan. Dylan? Take Thunderbird 13 a mile north and spread a mild anesthetic so the current carries it over the whole area. I don't want to have to tangle with that squid again. Thunderbird 13 mini-sub, and Gran, you'll launch Thunderbird 14. Okay, that's got the grapples clamped in place, but no good, Callum. can't move it. It's stuck tight. Thunderbird 14, deep sea battlescape. The rock must have collapsed onto it. Stay in position, Gran. I'll see if I can shift it with the hydraulic ram. Gotta angle this just right and make sure it falls away from the rail car. Okay, Gran. Take it away. Got it. It's free, Callan, which just leaves me to come alongside the exit door and pick up the survivors. And soon, great, we've got them all safely into the decompression chamber. You know, maybe it's a good job they have to stay in there for a few hours. I don't think Commander Simpson's going to be too happy. Not when this happens on his day off. Welcome to Wizard World. Time to put through a routine alert, I think, said Watch Officer Mikhail as he approached the end of his shift on Thunderbird 6. The rest of the team in Operations Control Center glanced at him briefly and nodded as he started to feed the information into his computer terminal. It would only take a matter of seconds for that warning to flash down from the orbiting space station to International Rescue's main base in the Pacific. A big storm building up in the North Pacific, Commander, announced Gran Hansen as the alert came through. Weather Control are bombarding it with deionization beams. There's only so much they can do. Right, we'll keep an eye on that one, Simpson told him, as usual. They were going through the morning's reports, looking for sources of potential trouble. What else have we got? Not a lot, Gran told him. A small bushfire in South Australia. A minor earth tremor in central China. A ship with its cargo shifting in the Caribbean. Local emergency services seem to have all pretty much under control. Okay, tell Thunderbird 6 to keep monitoring all of them in case they need assistance, said Simpson. Then allowed himself a slight smile. A quiet morning, hey, Gran? So far, Gran agreed cautiously. At least it gives me time to go and get a cup of coffee. But by the time he finished his drink, Officer Mikhail had sent a new and slightly more worrying report. Seems that storm has reached the island of Kashusha in southern Japan. Simpson told him weather control's taken some of the sting out of it, but they couldn't manage to disperse it completely. Shouldn't be too much of a problem, though, should it? Remarked Gran. After all, people survived storms before there was weather control. True, admitted Simpson, but if it's too big for weather control to deal with, well, maybe I'm worrying too much. But I think we'll get everybody taking an early lunch, just in case. The panic started just before the second course was served. Japan? Queried Dillon, worriedly as the team dashed into Commander Simpson's office for a briefing. What's happened? We're not sure how bad it is yet, Simpson told him. It is that giant amusement park in Kyushu, Wizard World. It seems the main computer that runs the place has been struck by lightning. And, well, there's only one way to describe it. The computer's run amok. Well, let's get moving then, said Dillon urgently. Simpson raised a hand and tried to calm him down. We can't make any move until we've got more details, he told him. We don't know exactly what the situation is yet. But listen, I was born in Japan, protested Dillon. There might be friends of mine involved. We might all have friends involved, put in Gran. But you know the score, Dillon. We can't allow personal feelings to come into this. Every rescue has to be treated exactly the same. Yeah, you're right, agreed Dillon still. Still, I can't see that we'll be needing Thunderbird 1 on a mission like this, said Simpson quietly. So you may as well take Thunderbird 10 and get out of there fast. Dillon, it usually helps to have a man on the spot so we know exactly what's going on. Great, said Dillon, dashing away immediately, and then pausing briefly at the door. And thank you, Commander. A mere 15 minutes later, Dillon brought the mini rocket ship in to make a perfect vertical landing about a quarter of a mile from the perimeter of Wizard World. But then the heart of the storm had moved on a mass of lightning/thunderheads which rumbled and growled in the distance. Though it was still raining heavily, but getting wet was the last thing Dylan was worried about, as he leaped to the ground and went looking for someone to give him a situation report. "It's hard to make an estimate," said Captain Kojima of the local police force. "Our guess is that there are about 4,000 people in the park before the storm struck. But the central computer's got the only record of how many admissions there were, and that's not going to give us any help. We have got most of those people out, at least 3,000 anyway, and more are coming out all the time. But do you know what's happening inside?" asked Dylan, opening a channel on his portable radio so the information would go back direct to arcology. "That's the problem," Kojima told him. "We tried to fly a surveillance copter over the place a few minutes ago, but the computers refashioned the laser light displays into weapons. Our copter was shot down before it could send back any pictures." Dylan groaned quietly as they walked toward the park. "Has anyone been on the ground? It's close off at all the gates in the perimeter and the perimeter fence, except one which managed to force open with a barricade of police trucks. But it keeps trying to push our trucks out of the way with cars from the high-speed Thrillerama exhibit. But we are holding on our own at the moment. That's where most of the survivors are coming out. Okay, I'll need all the maps, diagrams, blueprints, and so on, so that you can get me, Dylan. You can get me," Dylan told him. "Any deaths or injuries?" "Well, we don't know of any deaths, but we've got 7 people with various injuries, mostly minor. 1 or 2 with bad cuts, and there's a rumor that the robot Samari from the history display have gotten loose, which is another reason why I'm not sending my men in there." But then they had arrived at the large police truck, which was serving as a temporary headquarters, parked not far from the perimeter fence. Kojima immediately started getting the maps, and Dylan took a quick look at the general ground plan and then put through a call to Commander Simpson. "The trouble is," he began, "there are so many different types of problem we could run up against that it's hard to guess what equipment we'll need. I'd say that apart from Thunderbird 2 and Thunderbird 3, we could want Thunderbirds 5, 11, 12, 13, 15, and 16. That's more or less what we guessed," came Simpson's voice over the radio. "And everything's been loaded aboard Thunderbird 2 and is already on its way, except for Thunderbird 13. We didn't think you would be needing a mini-sub on dry land." "I'm hoping we don't," Dylan told him. "But there's an artificial lake here called Underwater World. Seems that visitors ride along the bottom in small rail cars, and if anyone's stuck down there..." "Right," agreed Simpson. "Fastest way we can get to you is to load it onto Thunderbird 8 and fly it out by remote control. But it'll take at least an hour to reach you. And Thunderbird 2, 20 minutes. It left shortly after you did. So now what do we do? Wait?" asked Kojima worriedly. "Yes and no," Dylan told him. "We wait for the equipment, but in the meantime, let's get all the men you can spare onto questioning people who have escaped. I want to hear from anyone who thinks he knows where people might be trapped in there." By the time the rest of the Thunderbirds team arrived, Dylan had a somewhat better idea of what was going on. "Our first problem is getting in," he said, pointing to the map as the others gathered round in Kojima's truck. "We can't go in by air or we'll be shot down, so it looks like we're going to have to force our way in through the one gate that's left open. Now, there might be a bunch of robots running around with Samari swords, so we'll all carry sidearms, right? And watch out for any cars or other movable machinery. The computer's quite likely to be using them as weapons." "After that," said Graham, "I guess our main task is going to be knocking out that blasted computer." "Right," agreed Dylan. "But when they built this place, they decided to put the computer on an island in the center of the park and surrounded it with a moat and fence to make sure no one could interfere with it. It's got low-frequency sound disruptors to warn off anyone who tries to cross the moat, and wide-beam stun blasters to knock out people who don't listen. And of course now it's got lasers too. So it's like breaking into a fortress, said Little John thoughtfully. Anyone trapped anywhere? All we know for sure is that 3 people are dangling on wires from the practice parachute jump tower. Dylan told him, and it looks like there's a car stuck inside the ride for a human body exhibit. The what? Asked Jessie. The giant figure lying along the hillside here, explained Dylan, pointing to the map. It's like a huge biology lesson. The customers travel through the inside of the body in cars, starting from the mouth. It seems there's a car stuck probably somewhere in a small intestine. I guess we're going to have to go in through the side of the stomach and then just sort of feel around until we find something. I'm glad you're not my doctor, Dylan, smiled Callan. Enjoy yourselves, boomed a colossal voice over Wizard World's public address system. You will enjoy yourselves, or you'll be punished. No one else leaves here until they have enjoyed themselves. There is no choice. You sure we've got in there, fellas? Asked Jessie. Gran nodded. Like it says, there's no choice. A couple of minutes later, they were ready to begin. Gran remained behind in Thunderbird 3 to coordinate things and run any of the remote control vehicles they might need to use, and also to consult the mobile computer. If the situation should arise, Little John and Callan took their seats in Thunderbird 5 and Dylan in Thunderbird 11. Jessie's first task would be to bulldoze a way in for them with Thunderbird 12, extending Thunderbird 12's huge power shovel and broadcasting a warning to any police or civilians that might be in the way on the loud hailer. Jessie nodded or nosed the huge flatbed through the gateway and started to slowly shove aside the barricade of trucks. He came under attack almost straight away. You have not paid your admission fee, roared the voice of the central computer as one of the high-speed cars hurtled toward the flatbed and smashed itself against the shovel blade. Jessie pushed that aside too, wondering how many more cars it might have to throw away. It seemed that the answer was only one more, for the last of the kamikaze cars plastered itself all over the shovel, just as Jessie removed the last of the obstructions, for the moment at least. An open roadway lay before them, leading toward the centre of the park. Dylan brought Thunderbird 11 alongside, and Jessie gave him a brief wave of acknowledgement as they started toward the computer island. Callan and Little John, meanwhile, turned away up a side path and started toward the human body behind them. More tourists strangled toward freedom. Jessie and Dylan had not gone much farther before they ran into more problems. Though at one side of the park, a new exhibit was due to be built, showing miniature versions of the 7 ancient wonders of the world, and the ground was just being cleared. Now the computer decided to bring one of the huge robot bulldozers into the action. Hey Dylan, yelled Jessie into the radio as he saw the machine approach. The weight of the thing causing its caterpillar treads to break up the surface of the road as it lumbered forward. It was almost as big as Thunderbird 12 itself. If I get into a head-on confrontation with that thing, I'm not sure who's going to come out best. I see it, Jessie, Dylan told him, flicking on Thunderbird 11's computer-controlled sensors and starting to look for a weak spot in the approaching machine. Then, moving slightly off to one side, Dylan lined up his lasers on the bulldozer's caterpillar treads and opened fire. The treads parted with whip, crack, snap, and the lumbering machine slewed round, going off the road and piling into a nearby pavilion, destroying the building utterly before it finally ground to a halt. "Nice shooting, partner! Nice shooting, partner," Jesse told him as they manoeuvred round the rubble and continued on their way. As Callan and Little John were not moving directly toward the centre of the park, the computer apparently decided that they posed no direct threat to it, and they managed to reach the human body exhibit without too much trouble. It was only when they started forcing their way in through the plastic skin that the computer responded. "This is an act of vandalism!" It roared as Thunderbird 5 disappeared within. "You are intruding upon a restricted area." "I never realized human body looked like this," exclaimed Little John as he stared at the mass of electrical gear and machinery that lay before them. "We are behind the scenes, remember," said Callan. "Only those parts that the public see actually look like the real thing. All this stuff is what makes it work." A small flame sprang up somewhere to their right, then spread rapidly along the cable insulation like a fiery spider's web. It's set the place on fire," yelled Little John, hitting the accelerator and driving their vehicle forward through the blazing machinery. A few moments later, they broke through another plastic wall and found themselves on the tracks of the car ride itself. "Which way now?" asked Little John as the flames started to grow more fierce. The heat wouldn't worry them within their effectively insulated shell of medallium, but the car they were hoping to find would be much more vulnerable. "That way," pointed Callan. "This is the large intestine. We have to go through this to reach the small one." Little John drove Thunderbird 5 through the eerily glistening plastic tunnel as fast as he dared, then rather faster as the walls themselves started first to smoulder and then to burst into flame. The fire kept following them as they moved out of the large intestine and into the small. A couple of minutes later, with the tunnel now full of acrid black smoke, they found the car they were looking for. It was little more than a clear plastic bubble that ran along the rails, and the 3 American tourists inside were starting to look distinctly panic-stricken as the flames roared around them. "We can't pull them out of there in this inferno," said Callan worriedly. "Only one thing to do," Little John told her. "We'll have to run up behind it and then push it along until we reach the exit." "Right," agreed Callan, "and I'll use the forward extinguishers to keep the car cool until we set them free. But let's keep it moving fast." Dylan and Jesse had been swiftly too, and by now they had reached the moat that surrounded the central island. "You are a threat to the security of this park," the computer warned them. "You will be destroyed. So let's do it now, Jesse," Dylan said, reversing away from the moat and scanning the computer building for its most vulnerable point. "It looks like it's trying to gear those display lasers downwards so it can use them as ground-level weapons against us." "You just get yourself a good run-up," Jesse told him as he operated the extending platform, moving it back and tilting it down behind Thunderbird 12 as soon as it was in position. Dylan hit the accelerator and sent Thunderbird 11 roaring forward, using Thunderbird 12's platform as a ramp. Dylan sent his car hurtling through the air at maximum speed, a leap which carried him clear across the moat and onto the island beyond. His forward lasers were blazing even before the front wheels hit the ground. The computer's wide-beam stun blasters were useless against Thunderbird 11's armor, though the sonic disruptors did cause Dylan a moment discomfort before he was past them. Bracing himself in the driving seat, Dylan kept the car going at full speed. "Stop!" screamed the computer, an almost human note of desperation in its voice. Dylan was not listening. The lasers had already weakened the wall before the car's armoured nose hit the concrete with bone-shaking impact. The jolt was so savage that Dylan almost lost consciousness, but by the time he realised what was happening, the car was through the wall and he was inside the building. The massive computer lay before him, relays clicking and lights flashing dementedly. Dylan was in no mood for subtly. He knew he had to get this over with before the computer had time to come up with a new means of defense. Keeping his foot hard down on the accelerator, he drove the car forward until it ground into the sparking mass of electronics, then opened the forward ports and lobbed out grenades in all directions, hunching in his seat as he waited for the explosions. An electronic whine that sounded almost like a scream echoed over the blasts, and then the room was plunged into darkness, save for a few small flames as the place started to fill with smoke. Dylan reversed Thunderbird 11 back out of the hole by which he had entered and looked around at the park. Everything was now completely still. "It's all over then?" asked Jesse when Dylan rejoined the others. "All over with the computer," Dylan agreed, looking up as the sun started to come out. "But our job's just beginning, now that the system's been shut down. We are going to have to check out every ride and display in the place to make sure that no one's still trapped. And get down those free people dangling on wires," Callan reminded him. "Right," nodded Dylan, then smiled. "Still, look on the bright side. At least we never ran into those robots, Samari." January 2026, and the 20th, to the World Federation. International Rescue Organization. Mankind is ever expanding the frontiers of technological superiority to areas unknown and uncharted. This never-ending quest continually pushes research and development into the increasingly challenging field of space exploration, energy development, and the biological and environmental sciences. Earth area promises marvelous discoveries, but each also brings potential danger. In direct response to the dangers of our advanced technology, we have developed an organization that is ready to mobilize dramatic survival resources at a moment's notice to spearhead dangerous missions and to answer last chance distress calls that can arrive any time from any disaster scene or on or off this planet. The organization is International Rescue, the specialized rescue squad is the Thunderbirds, a team that combines 5 of the finest cadets in the world, chosen for their physical and intellectual abilities, dedicated to the service of mankind wherever he may be in distress, with a dazzling array of vehicles and equipment designed for specifications as yet unconceived in the space-age technology of the 21st century. Conceptions in rescue that challenge the impossible, defying perilous odds again and again, with complete disregard for the risks. Thunderbirds 2086. Archaeology. Earth-based command center located on a remote island in the Pacific. Total present 55,505. Unrestricted visitors in mall 5,665. Visitors with special passes 1,711. Non-resident workers 321. Unauthorized visitors 0. Detained prisoners 0. Design goal 100,000. Now resident 60,453. Resident in outbuildings 765. The archaeology is a vast city complex housed on about 4 square miles of buildings and grounds. The main building is 1,000 feet high, rising from a square mile base. 1/2 mile on a side. Dr. Warren Simpson, age 55, rank commander, place of birth, Washington, D.C. Stats. The chief engineer and designer of International Rescue Organization and former NASA astronaut. Degrees in aerospace engineering, industrial engineering and systems engineering. Expertise in astrophysics, and his last post was commander of the research spacecraft Eunice Clark. He has chosen the rest of the International Rescue Organization team. Primary responsibility, Commander-in-Chief of the International Rescue Organization. Reports directly to the World Federation Supreme Council. Dylan Bader, age 28, rank captain, place of Earth, Tokyo. Stats. Son of the famous space explorer Harrison Bader, and Dylan's natural leadership abilities make him the spokesperson for the group. Graduate of Yale and Oxford Universities, degrees in astronomy and quantum mechanics, expertise in crystallography and navigation. A proficient in karate and primary responsibility, pilot of Thunderbird 1. Gran Hansen, age 45, rank captain, senior officer, place of birth, New Berlin. State of stats. Trained at Lunar Academy as asteroid miner for Rama Space Seed project. Degrees in communications, fluid mechanics and meteorology. Expertise in lasers, ion engines, asteroid geology and weaponry. Primary responsibility, pilot Thunderbird 3. Jesse Rigel, age 29, rank captain, place of birth Lunar Colony 9. Stats. Born on the moon but raised in Texas. He fancies himself a space cowboy trained at NASA headquarters in Houston. Degrees in aerospace engineering, geophysics and metallurgy. Expertise in cytology. Ace pilot. Primary responsibility, co-pilot Thunderbird 2. Callum James, age 26, rank captain, place of birth San Diego, California. Stats. A graduate of UCLA. Degrees in biochemistry and ocean. Expertise in biophysics, ecology and zoology. Olympic swimming gold medal winner, 400 meter backstroke, 2076. Primary responsibility, pilot at Thunderbird 4. Jonathan Jordan Jr., age 30, rank captain, place of birth New York City. Stats. Graduate of New York University. Degrees in industrial engineering and particle physics. Expertise in archaeology and architecture. Olympic gymnast, gold medal winner, 2076. Primary responsibility, co-pilot of Thunderbird 2. Paul Skipper Simpson, age 7. Commander Simpson's nephew. Honorary member of the International Rescue Organization team. Hopes to be a space explorer. Primary responsibility, attends 3rd grade at the Archaeology Elementary School. A World to Ransom. As the space tug moved slowly away from orbital station 23 and started to accelerate, the pilot looked back with a thin, metallic smile of subdued triumph. Why he should feel any emotion about his success, he had no idea. It had all been far too easy, but nonetheless he did still. Emotions were for later. Right now, all that mattered was that the first part of the plan had been completed. Orbital Station 23 reached slowly into the distance as the tug picked up speed. A gleaming metal and glassite ball whirling perpetually around the Earth. Its robot crew performing their endless tasks with neither error nor complaint, and totally ignorant of the fact that someone had manually overridden their control circuits for the last half an hour before returning them to their normal duties. But half an hour had been enough. Now it merely remained to move on to the second phase of the plan. and within 24 hours he would be ready to deliver his ultimatum. That ultimatum was delivered precisely 10 o'clock the following morning. By 10:02 a.m., the details had been relayed to Commander Warren Simpson of the International Rescue Organization at their Pacific Island base. Archaeology by 10:05 a.m., the entire Thunderbirds team was assembled for briefing, and already time was starting to slip away too fast. As you all know, Simpson began grimly, both disease and warfare had been virtually wiped out of this planet. But as you also know, diseases which have been officially wiped out, like smallpox and bubonic plague, have a surprising tendency to reappear just when you are least expecting it. So naturally, we keep a smaller quantity of the original virus for each disease for research, and to prepare vaccines from if needed. Those stocks of viruses were kept out in space aboard Orbital Station 23, where they couldn't do any harm. We were kept there, asked Dylan. Yes, were kept there, nodded Simpson, along with a quantity of poisonous material left over from the last century, when various nations were stockpiling toxic weapons for defense purposes. Even poisons have their uses on occasion. So they were stockpiled there too. But now it seems that someone has managed to penetrate the station's security system and make off with large quantities of poison and virus. Simpson paused for a moment, watching the horrified reactions of his crew before continuing. Now the World Federation has received an ultimatum. It seems that whoever's responsible for the theft has placed two devices somewhere on Earth. One apparently in the sea contains the toxic material, the other on land contains the diseases, and if the Federation does not hand over government of the entire planet to this anonymous malefactor within 12 hours, those devices will release their contents. I need hardly tell you what the consequences will be. Death for every living thing in the world. It must be a bluff. It must be a bluff, drawled Jesse. It's gotta be. What would the guy gain by destroying the world? It might be a bluff, agreed Simpson, but we've got to assume he means it. He's certainly got the potential to do it. Now the World Federation will be delaying its answer until the last moment. So that leaves us 11 hours and 15 minutes to find those devices and make them safe. We have been given priority override. Any resources we need are available. Any information is accessible. With that, they moved into the main communications room, and the team split up to take their positions as various consoles ready to tap into the world's computer network. Okay, I've got a few suggestions, began Dylan. First, I guess we've got to assume that our enemy isn't on Earth at the moment, but just in case he is, let's ban all ships leaving for the next 12 hours. If he can't get away himself, he might not pull that switch. Consider it done, said Simpson, reaching for a direct Visa phone connection to the World Federation. Next thing we need to know is when the stuff was taken from Orbital Station 23. Dylan continued, turning to Little John, who had access to that information. The place is run entirely by robots, and there's a stun screen on the main airlock to prevent any humans entering. So the robbery must have been carried out by a robot, right? I guess so, Dylan, agreed Little John, as the information began to come through on his screen. They have regular stock checks every week. The last was 3 days ago, and nothing was missing then. They are carrying out another one right now. Only one ship's docked at the station since then, and that was a regular service tug yesterday noon. Then that must have been it, Dylan concluded. If it was, Little John said, whoever is responsible must be some sort of robotics genius. All the robots not involved in the stock check are having their service recorders examined, and so far they have shown absolutely nothing unusual for yesterday. I've got records of 14 ships landing on Earth since yesterday noon, put in Callan. all of them with passenger lists and cargo manifests apparently in order. Federal agents are starting an investigation of each ship, but it'll take, well, longer than we've got. Oh, good grief, muttered Little John softly as the result of the stock check flashed up on his screen. I sure hope this guy's bluffing, because can do everything he says he can. He's got just about every foul disease and poison you can think of in concentrated form. Enough to destroy the planet 20 times over. And the whole lot weighs less than 3 kilos. 3 kilos, Simpson said, thoughtfully. Forget the big ships, Callan. Give us a readout of any debris, old satellites, space junk, meteors, or whatever they may have fallen in the last 24 hours. If the stuff weighs that little, he could be sending it down in small automatic missiles. 4, replied Callan after a moment. South Atlantic, 3:15 in the afternoon p.m. Yesterday, North Pacific, 11:20 p.m. in the afternoon. At night, 11:20 at night. Canada, 11:33 at night. Saudi Arabia, 4 o'clock in the morning, this morning a.m. We could only guess the location of each fall to within about 20 miles. The middle two, suggested Dillon, the Pacific and Canada, close together, both in distance and time. That's my guess too, said Simpson. Jesse and Little John head north in Thunderbird 2. You can put Callan and Thunderbird 4 down at that Pacific location, and then head on to Canada with Gran and Thunderbird 3. Assist Gran until you hear from Callan, and take along all the extra equipment you're likely to need. And remember, the stuff we're looking for is dangerous. On our way, said Jesse, as he and the others got to their feet and raced into action. And what about me? Asked Dillon. You and I will stay here and see if we can work out where to find this madman, Simpson told him, in case the others can't find his poisons. At 11:54 a.m., Thunderbird 4 was released into the wide Pacific, and Callan immediately took the submarine down toward the bottom. Within minutes, she had arrived at the position where the object was estimated to have landed, but a factor of 20 miles in the calculations left her an awful lot of seabed to search, and that was without taking into account how the ocean currents might have diverted the object as it sank. And Callan released the mini-sub, Thunderbird 13, on automatic pilot, and the two craft began a link search pattern. Even so, Callan knew as she watched the detector screens, it was going to be a difficult task, and one she had to complete within the next 4 or 5 hours if it was to be any use. At 12:40 p.m., Thunderbird 2 and Thunderbird 3 arrived at their destination in Canada and found that their search area was right in the middle of a thick pine forest. They too split up and began to search, with Gran using Thunderbird 3's jets to skim low over the trees, but their task was to prove just as difficult as Callan's. She had a vast expanse of deep blue ocean to search. The others had a sea of thickly clustered pines. Back at archaeology, time slipped slowly away, and Dillon remained in the communications room, racking his brain for a new approach and monitoring the progress of the rest of the team, while Commander Simpson spent some of the time there and some in his own office. Eventually, Simpson came to join Dillon with a grim expression. I've just heard from the Supreme Council of the World Federation, he said. They seem to have decided that our opponent's bluffing, and they are going to call it. Whatever happens, they won't give in to his demands, which leaves it all down to us. Well, there's not much more we can do as far as the search is concerned, Dillon said, activating his computer console again. So we better go back to the beginning. Let's assume the robbery was carried out by the robot. Piloting that service tug yesterday, but that robot service recorder shows a perfectly normal routine, so it must have been expertly forged. So we don't even know if it was that robot that carried out the mission. No leads there. The service tug, began Simpson. It returned to transshipping Station 4. Right. Everything perfectly normal, but how many ships left that station in the 2 or 3 hours that followed? 3, Dillon told him. 1 for Earth, which is one of the ships being investigated now. 1 for Space Colony 2, and 1 for Deep Space Technology Satellite. Well, you can forget that last one, said Commander Simpson. It is run by Paul Frederick, an old friend of mine. He'd never get involved in anything like this. Then what about of his team? Asked Dillon. After all, they use a fair number of robots in their space construction jobs. But there are only 3 other people up there with Frederick, Simpson told him. No, I just can't believe it, and I'll give him a call just to make sure. Paul Frederick appeared on the visible screen a few moments later, a big-built man in his late 40s with a craggy face and hard operative enough. Craggy face and hard staring eyes, but he was friendly and cooperative enough when he saw who was calling, and Dillon sat watching in silence as the man gave a perfectly sound account of his entire team's movements over the last 24 hours. You see, said Simpson, when the call was ended. Dillon shrugged. I guess it has to be Space Colony 2, then, he said, getting to his feet. How about me taking up Thunderbird 1 and checking it out? There's not a lot to see I can do here. There's not a lot else I can do here. Simpson nodded. But if our man sees Thunderbird 1 arriving, we are just liable to panic him into setting off his devices. Head for transshipping Station 4 instead, Dillon. I will commandeer a supply ship for you to make your final approach in. Right, agreed Dillon, relieved to be getting into the action at last. It was nearly 3 in the afternoon by the time Thunderbird 1 blasted away from archaeology, and there was still no sign of success from the rest of the team. It was at about the time that Gran put through a call to Jesse and Littlejohn. You know, I've been thinking, guys, he began. We have been using search coordinates based on the idea that we were looking for falling space debris. The sort of stuff that comes straight down and smashes into the ground at thousands of miles an hour. But if this is some sort of canister that's going to be opened later, it'll have to land more gently than that. They'd have to use retro rockets, parachutes, or whatever to slow it down. And if it's coming down more slowly, it'll have a different trajectory, and that means a different landing area. Too right, agreed Jesse. Blast that. Means we're going to have to recalculate for an entirely new search area, and so's Callan, okay, Gran? We're going to get on to Commander Simpson and tap into the main computers back at archaeology. We'll get back to you as soon as we've got anything. By the time those new calculations had been made, Dillon had arrived at Transshipping Station 4 and found the supply ship ready and waiting for it. Leaving Thunderbird 1 anchored in orbit, he logged a flight plan for Space Colony 2 and set off. Then 3 miles from the station, he began to change course. The supply ship moved with frustrating slowness by comparison with Thunderbird 1, and it was gone 6 in the evening by the time Dillon approached the huge wheel like Deep Space Technology Satellite. He began to circle it slowly, heading for the vast central docking bay, and at the same time radioing for permission to come alongside. Landing permission was refused. The reason was plausible enough. A delicate experiment that had to be carried out in the completely vibration-free state, and which couldn't be disturbed by having a supply ship docking. But somehow Dylan didn't believe it. It was partly a hunch, partly because the original ultimatum hadn't been delivered by a human voice. Instead, the words had been constructed of a series of electronic tonalities, and then cut in one of the communication satellites. That meant a high level of technology, and there wasn't any higher than on this satellite wheel. But that left Dylan with a big problem. He had to get aboard somehow, and secretly, but without bringing his ship into direct contact with the satellite. He sat back in the pilot chair to think for a moment. I found it. Callan's voice crackled over the radio excitingly. On the flight deck of Thunderbird 2, it's a canister about 10 feet long and showing signs of heat damage from entry through the atmosphere. Great, Callan, replied Jesse, overwhelmed with relief, but still trying to keep his mind on the job. First thing you do is give us the exact coordinates, and then by comparing them with the coordinates where you were originally searching, we should get some idea where we ought to be looking for our canister. After that, don't go near the thing yourself. Use Thunderbird 14 on remote control to load it aboard Thunderbird 13. And then the little old flying mini-sub can transport it here to Canada to join us. Right, agreed Callan, feeding the coordinates through directly on the computer. Keep hunting. Up in orbit, high above them, the supply ship turned away from the technology satellite and started to head for Space Colony 2 as originally planned. But Dylan was no longer aboard, dressed in his spacesuit. He had set the ship on automatic and sent it on its way. While he used his jetpack to propel himself through the empty vacuum back toward the wheel, reaching the outer rim, he found himself a handhold and settled down to wait. Every minute that passed was agonizing. But he felt he had to give the supply ship plenty of time to get clear before he tried to make an entrance through one of the airlocks. It was always impossible to open an emergency airlock, he knew, so there was nothing to stop him getting in. But he wanted to make sure he could do it without anyone else knowing about it. Half an hour passed before Dylan entered the satellite and stripped off his suit. Then, blaster in hand, he stepped out of the airlock. But he'd gone no more than a few paces when he came under fire. Dylan hurled himself around a corner and pressed his back up against the wall. As the laser beams cut the air all around him, there was quite definitely something wrong here, for all Frederick's assurances to the contrary. Even more wrong was the fact that he was coming under fire from blaster-totting robots, and robots were supposed to be programmed never to endanger human life. But anyone who could forge a robot service record was quite capable of overriding their basic programming too. But these were ordinary service robots that Dylan was up against, and there was a big difference between reprogramming them and making them intelligent. Dylan stuck his blaster around the corner and let out a shot. Shoulder high. 3 laser beams were returned, also shoulder high. Then Dylan threw himself out into the corridor, rolling on the floor before the robots could readjust their aim. His blaster had fired 3 times. 3 robots went down in a smoking mass of molten metal and smouldering insulation. And Dylan was on his feet instantly and running toward the satellite's control center. Only one other robot tried to stop him, but he melted at it before it had time to aim. Then he was at the satellite's central core, and the door slid open. Frederick was standing on the other side of the room, with a low control console between them. The scientist turned to face Dylan, thin-lipped and hardened, and started to edge slowly toward the console. Hold it, snapped Dillon, but Frederick kept walking. What will you do? He asked, looking Dillon straight in the eye. I know you. International rescue people will never kill. And he took another pace. His hand started to reach toward the console. And Dillon went down on one knee and shot him straight between the eyes. As a stench of burning plastic and melting metal filled the air, Frederick tumbled forward toward the console, a clicking sound in his throat that might almost have been laughter, and pulled a switch. Before collapsing to the floor, Dillon leaped forward, but it was already too late. All he could do was find a radio and call through a warning to Commander Simpson. I took care of our man, he began, but just too late. He released the viruses. We know, Dillon, cut in Jesse suddenly in less than worried tones, but we found his canisters before you found him. We are 300 miles out in space, and we have just jettisoned the stuff 2 minutes before it exploded. It's not going to do anyone any harm up here in airless space. Dillon slumped into a chair, shaking with relief, and sat looking at the smouldering remains of the fake Frederick for a couple of minutes before going off to find the real man and his companions. That's right, exclaimed Frederick when Dillon released him from the tiny locked cabin. We've been working on making an android, a perfect robot that not only looks exactly like a human being, but has its own intelligence too. This one was a bit too intelligent, though, and power-crazed as well. The first thing it did was lock us up, and then remold its artificial flesh to look like me. And it was that which carried out the robbery, added Dillon. It had to be a robot, but with a brain of its own. Right, agreed Frederick, and it would quite happily have wiped out every human being on the planet and even replaced them with androids like itself. There's only one thing that puzzles me. How did you know it wasn't me? Observation, said Dillon, smiling. I watched it all the time that Commander Simpson was speaking to it on the visor screen. The fact is that it was always staring. Gave me the clue. Artificial eyes don't blink. Thunderbird craft and equipment. Number 1. Advanced Space Shuttle. Flight Command Center for International Rescue. NASA design employs Ultimate Mach 10F HF computer guidance system. Computer and manned capabilities of this craft allow maximum flexibility for orbital and near-Earth operations. Length 62 meters, weight 124.8 tons. Thunderbird 2, hypersonic transport, capable of transporting at ultra high speeds any one of many pods containing disaster equipment or additional Thunderbird machinery for every conceivable type of emergency. Giant rocket boosters and twin Eon engine drive gave Thunderbird 2 the capability for near-Earth and deep space exploration. Thunderbird 2 and Thunderbird 3 link onto Thunderbird 2 for high-velocity transport to danger zones. Length 83 meters, weight 193.5 tons. Thunderbird 3 reconnaissance ground vehicle. Mobile multifunctional laboratory and ground operations vehicle can be transported via link up to Thunderbird 1 and Thunderbird 2. The 3 vehicles together from the nucleus of the Thunderbird Rescue Force. Length 46 meters, weight 68.44 tons. Thunderbird 4, submarine. Thunderbird 4 is capable of descending to depths reachable by no other vehicle and can be airlifted aboard Thunderbird 2 for transport anywhere on Earth or into space should the need arise. Equipment includes Olympic Mark V111, twin electric drive, twin ultra Cancine lightning trowels, hydraulic ram, length 45 meters, maximum cruising speed 120 knots underwater, 96 knots on surface, maximum diving depth 11,000 meters. Thunderbird 5, special ground operations vehicle used for firefighting and extremely hazardous operations such as disposal of highly toxic or explosive substances. Outer shell is constructed of mendelium, a special alloy that is an extremely efficient insulator and resists temperatures as high as 4,000 centigrade. Length 29 meters, maximum speed 45 km HR. Thunderbird 6 space station in L.5 orbit around Earth. Thunderbird 6 emergency alert. Communication center monitors signals from anywhere on Earth or in space. Thunderbird 6 houses complete research center and numerous laboratories and docking and support facilities. Thunderbird 1, Thunderbird 2, Thunderbird 3. Thunderbird 6 is home to the construction coordinators for all United Nations space and colonies and Thunderbird 6's rescue or operations control center. A National Rescue Organization scientists and pilots pilot manned shifts around the clock to pinpoint emergencies and device plans for their solution. Length 15 kilometers, weight 6,200 tons. Thunderbird 7 mini aircraft, high speed, kept aboard Thunderbird 1 for specialized rescue operations as escape craft, specially designed for vertical liftoff and landing. Weight 12 meters and weight 5 tons. Thunderbird 8, a computer controlled air transport stored aboard Thunderbird 1. This unmanned aircraft is used for transporting extremely dangerous materials. Length 15 meters and weight 9 tons. Maximum speed of Mach 3. Mach 2. Thunderbird 9, one-man spacewalkers. Thunderbird 9 is used for precision work in outer space. Pull forward thrust, 3 axes, altitude jets, height 3.5 meters, weight is 1 ton. Thunderbird 10, ultra high speed mini rocket ship used for extremely fast transportation, can be airlifted in its pod aboard Thunderbird 2. Length 18 meters, weight 12 tons, maximum speed Mach 176. Thunderbird 11, high speed ground vehicle. Thunderbird 11 is carried aboard Thunderbird 3. It is armoured and equipped with computer controlled sensors and effective array of weapons. Length 5 meters, weight 1 ton, maximum speed 370 kilometers HR on road surface. Thunderbird 12, a multifunction flatbed. Thunderbird 12 can be carried aboard Thunderbird 3, equipped with high-powered shovel and extending platform. Length 15 meters, weight 150 tons, maximum speed 100 kilometers on road and 40 kilometers off-road. Thunderbird 13, flying mini-sub carried aboard Thunderbird 4, length 9 meters, maximum speed in the atmosphere Mach 1, maximum speed underwater 60 knots. Thunderbird 14, a deep sea battlescape. Thunderbird 14 can be carried aboard Thunderbird 4 when needed for specialized deep sea operations. Length is 12 meters, weight 5.5 tons, maximum speed 60 knots, submerged. Thunderbird 15, a mobile computer. Thunderbird 15 can be remote controlled or manned, equipped with computer terminals and radio link up with International Rescue Organization. Central computer can be carried aboard Thunderbird 5. Length is 4.5 meters. Weight is 1.9 tons. Maximum speed 220 kilometers HR. Thunderbird 16, the Mole. remote controlled digging apparatus can be transported aboard Thunderbird 5. Length is 6 meters, weight is 12 tons, maximum speed 120 kilometers on surface and 70 kilometers underwater. Thunderbird 17, long-range space probe. Thunderbird 17 is kept aboard Space Terminal. Thunderbird 6 can be radio controlled or can be manned. Length 200 meters, maximum speed 27 kilometers and seconds. Weight 1,250 tons. Next story, Fall of the Frost Giant. 2086 in a stationary orbit high above the Pacific. An unmanned satellite keeps the world's weather under control. But for how much longer? Oh, so very cold. For from the depths of space something is approaching, something huge and alien and cold. But also orbiting the Earth and maintaining continual vigilance is the International Rescue Organization's Space Station Thunderbird 6. Thunderbird 6 to archaeology. Come in, Commander Simpson. The Pacific weather satellite's being knocked out. And we have an unidentified space intruder heading for a splashdown near Coracola Island. Coracola? That's only a couple of 100 miles from here. Keep on its track, Thunderbird 6. I want a minute-by-minute report. Yes, sir. It's touching down now. No attempt to cut its speed. Heavy impact. But it seems undamaged, and now it's reached the shore. It's moving, reshaping itself into some sort of giant. Hold on, sir. 2 other factors. We're picking up unidentifiable signals as if the thing's being controlled from outer space. And we are recording a sudden alarming drop in temperature. Dylan, take Thunderbird 1 and investigate. I want a close look at that thing. Oh, on my way, sir. We'll follow up with Thunderbird 2 and Thunderbird 3 when we know what equipment we need. At least Coracola Island isn't inhabited. Is it? Mayday, mayday. This is Ed Edwards of the Bio Research Unit on Coracola. I don't know what's happening, but the temperature has dropped 50 degrees in 5 minutes. Snow in the tropics. Ice is building up. I am being overwhelmed. Buried. Meanwhile, I can see it. No life readings. An alien design. It's my bet the thing's a robot. Probably sent from an ultra-cold planet to alter our climate and get Earth softened up for an on-off world invasion. It's time to put the heat on with a laser tack. Zat chip. But no good, it's actually freezing the air to shield itself. Shook. And now it's shooting back. Gotta take evasive action to try and lead it away. Because here come the other Thunderbirds. Hey, you sure this is Coracola, not the North Pole? Edwards, are you still okay? Yes, I'm still here. Good, keep this channel open. We'll home in on your transmitter. Thunderbird 16, the mole. Hang on, Ed. We're going to dig you out. But dig? But that'll take hours. Not the way we do it. Hey, Callan, get me a situation report from base. Scree! There's a team looking at the weather satellite, but it'll take a week to fix. And by that time, the whole planet will be frozen solid. It's up to you, Thunderbirds, to destroy that thing. Okay, listen, everyone, I've got an idea. First, I'll try to lead the thing to the far end of the island. And that's where you come in. Thunderbird 2, Gran, Callan, you handle this. We've got to go and help Dylan. Okay, guys, we're almost there. And scream. What on earth? Okay, stop. Otherwise, you'll the drill right through me. The mole's remote controlled, Ed. Just get on board and we'll bring you up. You don't have to tell me twice. While elsewhere, Jesse, Little John, you in position? Okay, let's get started. Shouldn't be hard to persuade our frigid friend that this is a suicide attack. After all, it probably is. But if it gives you time to get in and make the grab, we've got it. And Dylan pulled through okay, too. So let's head for the volcano fast. But we've lost the grapple. The robot's so cold it's making the metal brittle. Let's hope the other one holds out until... Now, Jesse, we're over the crater. Hit that drop switch. Don't have to Little John. The thing's fallen off anyway. But right on target. Right into the heart of a live volcano. Let's see it try to freeze that. Whoosh! And moments later, we've done it. Nothing left but a heap of slag. And the ice is already starting to melt, too. Looks like we've got it all tied up. And the way we took that one out, I can't see them sending another. Solar sailors. Now, if we were a betting man, remarked Gran Hansen slowly, my money would be on Hogan. He's got more grit when the chips are down. If things get tough up there, I count on Hogan being the one to pull through. Maybe Gran, but in Little John, but Gunston's got that much more will to win. He's downright manic about beating Hogan. What's going on, everybody? Came a small voice from behind them as Skipper entered the office and found the entire Thunderbirds team gathered round a telescreen. With a flurry of hellos, the group moved aside to let the boy through. What kind of spaceships are they, Uncle Warren? He asked as soon as he could see the screen. The kind you only see once every 4 years, Skipper, Commander Simpson told him. They are solar space yachts for the Martian races. They look awfully funny to me, remarked the 7-year-old. Where are the rockets? They don't have any rockets, Skipper, Dylan began to explain, pointing toward the screen, and the two fragile, spider-like space yachts. See, these big sailors at the front here, they covered in solar cells. They pick up the light from the sun and turn it into electricity, which is then run back to the main part here. And he pointed to a comparatively tiny metal space capsule dangling on a frail girder 100 yards behind the main sails. That's where the pilot lives and controls the ship. And that's where the electricity runs a small ion engine which propels the ship. It sounds awful slow, said Skipper dubiously. It is start off with, said Callan, picking up the explanations. But as there's no air resistance out in space, the speed keeps building up all the time. The engines are running. They came back from Mars in about half the time it takes them to get there. Even so, it'll be about a year before they return. If they get back at all, put in Jesse, hardly a race goes by without one of the yachts getting in trouble. But there are only 2 of them, protested Skipper, unable to come to grips with the idea of men racing in machines so unsafe, but there was only a 50% chance of coming through alive. Only 2 this time, Skipper explained. Little John, it's a special challenge race, Hogan and Gunston. Over the last 20 years, they have each won twice. The only 2 men in history to take more than 1 Martian pennant. So this one's the clincher. Probably the last chance for either of them to make it 3 wins. By the time another 4 years comes round, they'll both be thinking about retiring. Maybe they should have retired already, remarked Dylan, suddenly serious. Sure, it's their own lives they're putting on the line. If anything goes wrong, We're the ones who have to go out and rescue them. We don't want another disaster like we had 12 years ago. Three ships lost without trace, explained Commander Simpson, before Skipper got the chance to ask. That was about before there were any Thunderbirds to pick them up, and that's why we're keeping a close eye on this race, even if it means tying up time on Thunderbird 6 for a year, just keeping them under surveillance. All of which seemed to explain everything except one last thing. How come each yacht's got different sails? Asked Skipper. They have each got the same area of sail, Grant told him. But it's up to the pilot what shape he has or how he spreads them. Whatever he thinks best. That's Hogan, who's got the 4 square sails. And Gunston's got the circular one with the hole in the middle, as they will be heading directly from the sun at the start of the trip. They always leave a space in the middle where the pod could cast a shadow high up in space. In a stationary orbit not far from Thunderbird 6, those sails were fully spread, and after a brief countdown, both Hogan and Gunston turned on their ion engines at the same time. For many long seconds, absolutely nothing seemed to happen. And then a faint blue glow started to build up behind the engine nacelles, strengthening and brightening gradually as the minutes dragged by. Even so, there was no immediate sign of movement. The acceleration was so slow and gradual that the yachts moved only a few feet in the first 10 minutes, and it was half an hour before anyone could see any noticeable difference in their position related to the International Rescue Space Station. The long race was beginning at a speed of less than 1 mile an hour. As a spectacle, it made lousy television, thought Skipper, quickly losing interest in the screen and going off to find something else to do. Finding something to do was the big problem for Hogan and Gunston too, out on the yachts. For once, the course was set. There wasn't a lot of piloting to do. Hogan read space manuals, and Gunston played video games as the speed rose to a slow walking pace by the end of the day, to that of a run on the second, to that of a cruising car on the third. It was going to be a long, slow way to Mars. 3 weeks passed on as the ships drifted slowly further and further out from Earth, Gunston gradually building up a lead of some 3 or 4 yards. It wasn't important then, but it might have been later on. By that time, too, the swarm of news and TV ships that had been following the yachts had dropped behind them, and open space lay before them. A race where nothing happened for weeks on end held little interest to the news media, and Hogan and Gunston would become forgotten men for months, until they either approached Mars or until some accident befell one or other of them. Strangely, 2 days after the last news ship was left behind, Gunston's yacht began to drop behind. The loss of speed was minimal. It took 6 hours for his 4-yard lead to be wiped out. But over the following days he dropped back still further until he was running some 30 yards behind Hogan's ship. Hogan watched all this with a mixture of content and concern. He was obviously pleased with his lead, but on the other hand he had no great desire for Gunston to drop right back and leave him totally alone this early in the race. There was no love lost between the two opponents, especially after the race had been built up as a needle match. But space is an awfully lonely place. Besides, it's something went wrong with a ship so similar to its own. It gave Hogan some cause to worry. The funny thing was, he couldn't see anything amiss with Gunston's yacht. Before long enough, something of more immediate concern called for Hogan's attention. His forward scanner began to show a small meteor, showing not far ahead, as he started to shrug on his spacesuit. Hogan put through a radio call to Gunston, warning him of the danger. After all, there were certain rules to observe, and even if your opponent happened to be your worst enemy, you still didn't leave him to the mercy of a meteor shower. Meteors don't have any. Funny thing about those meteor showers, reflected Hogan, as he snapped his helmet into place and started to breathe bottled air. According to the computer experts, the odds against running into them during this race was 60-1. And yet 3 times in the last 20 years, the Martian racers had run into meteors. They made things interesting. Anyway, even a shower the size of sand particles could rip a solar sail to pieces, and that would add a human factor to the proceedings. Whoever got out and got its one set of reserve sails rigged fastest would probably win. It was only when the meteors got larger that any real danger came into it, and Hogan had sat tight more than once in the main pod, while the things rattled like pebbles against the armoured shell. Something the size of a fist could puncture the pod and put you out of the race. Anything larger than that was liable to put you out of everything permanently. According to the scanner, they were running into a fairly small shower. Nothing too dangerous, just a scattering of cosmic debris hanging almost motionless in space. But the yachts would hit them at several hundred miles an hour, and there was no way to maneuver around them. Hogan hunched in his seat, waiting for the impact. The sails went first. Naturally, a few small holes appeared to begin with, and then Hogan's right upper sheet suddenly tore to ribbons. The other 3 sails fell apart almost immediately, and then Hogan heard the pea-sized meteor start to rattle on the walls. Looking through the armoured porthole, he could see Gunston's yacht suffering just as badly as its sail, disintegrating swiftly as it too ran into the shower. At least they were both in the same trouble, but not for long. Hogan suddenly froze in horror as he saw his scanner show something large and dangerous drifting toward him. It wasn't moving all that fast, but it was almost as big as the main pod, and something that large didn't have to. Hogan breathed a sigh of relief as his mini-computer indicated a near miss of several yards. The sigh died on his lips as the scanner showed the giant lump of rock suddenly change course. Hogan knew that ordinary meteors couldn't do that, but he hardly had time to think about it. Within seconds, the giant rock was upon him, smashing against the front end of the pod. The meteor careered straight through the spidery girderwork of the ship, severing the pod from the sails and sending the entire yacht spinning wildly off course. Hogan felt an explosive rush as the air in the pod escaped, and a large rent appeared in one wall, through which he could see a starlight. Hogan glanced rapidly at the emergency air bottles. Enough for 2 or 3 days, if he was lucky. And if the rest of the ship wasn't too badly damaged. The front scanner was out of action, though, and he pressed his helmet close to the window. Outside, he saw the giant rock for an instant, and then there was a tiny flash of rocket engines from it. The meteor began to maneuver away through empty space. Hogan reached for the radio. It was dead. That was it. Then he decided, spinning off course, cut off from any contact, and he was the only one who knew it had no accident. It was sabotage. It would probably be murder. In the following yacht, the Gunston saw the disaster and immediately tried to call Hogan on the short-range radio. There was no reply. Worriedly, Gunston switched frequencies and started to pull through a distress call to Thunderbird 6. "I knew it," muttered Dillon. watching the forward screens as Thunderbird 2 climbed out of the Earth's atmosphere and set a course to follow the yachts. The whole race ought to be banned. It's just too dangerous. Maybe, agreed Gran. But if you tried to stop a sport just because it was risky, where would you end up? Trying to stop people doing everything just in case something happened? Dylan shrugged. No comment, Tilly. And went over to join Callan as she plotted their course. According to Gunston's computer log, the impact should have taken place here, she remarked, pointing to a graphic chart on the display screen. Now, if we assume that the big meteor had roughly the same motion as the rest of the shower, we can make a rough guess at what vector Hogan's yacht would have moved along after the impact. Give or take 10 degrees, but we don't know the speed or whether Hogan's engines are still firing, or there are an awful lot of assumptions and guesses and buts in that. Callum, said Dylan, gently, and even that it leaves us a huge area of space to search. How long till we reach the location of the accident? 4 or 5 hours, said Callan, shrugging. It's the best we can do right now. Okay, Dylan said. Feed that course through to the main controls. I'm going to check out Thunderbird 1 and make sure we're ready to start the search as soon as we arrive. Gunston was too busy re-rigging his reserve sails to talk to the rescue team for long when they finally arrived, so Thunderbirds 1 and 2 split up and started off at slightly different angles, spreading the search area over a widening cone as they moved away. First sighting, and even then he couldn't believe it. Hey, I just saw something dark against the face of the moon, he exclaimed, staring out of the front window. Just for a second, then it was gone. Little John was changing course even before he finished speaking. Hey, you're interrupting the search pattern, protested Callan, but Little John merely shrugged. Maybe, he said, but I've got a hunch about this. If nothing comes within scanner range in 5 minutes, we'll pick up the old course. 4 minutes later, though, the scanners did actually show something ahead, but as they moved in closer, they found that it was only the severed, tattered sail assembly from Hogan's ship. Of the main pod, there was still no sign, but they dropped the space beacon, and Callan began recollaborating their search pattern. At least they knew they were on the right track now. Even so, it took another half an hour to find Hogan, and Thunderbird 2 moved in to investigate while Callan called Dylan to rejoin them. The ship's a mess, declared Jessie, looking out of the front port. Ripped open, the airlock shattered, there's no way we can dock with it. I'd be surprised if he was still alive in there, said Gran grimly. But we've got to make sure, Jessie. You and I'll go over in the spacewalkers and find out. Dylan was just bringing Thunderbird 1 back to dock as the walkers emerged, jets thrusting them forward. The crippled yacht, Gran was first to arrive, took a quick look at a rip in the armored shell, then used the claw-ended automatic arms of the walker to pull the rip open even wider. Moments later, the arms of Jesse's walker slipped through the gap, and with infinity care, picked up the space-suited Hogan. After only a brief pause, while Hogan grabbed his computer log, Jesse delicately drew the man out through the gap, and they turned to head back to Thunderbird 2. I really don't know how to thank you people, said Hogan, as he stripped off his spacesuit, and Dylan looked at him coolly, a man in his late 40s with thick dark hair and a hard, craggy face, a man with an obsession. Listen, have you found my sail rig? Hogan's yacht was supposed to have an emergency beacon, but they picked up no trace of signals. Either that meant the ship was so badly damaged the beacon had been knocked out, Dillon thought, or that Hogan, in trying to keep his yacht as light as possible, hadn't even brought one with him. That broke all the rules in the book, but it wouldn't matter if they couldn't find him, and another hour passed with no sign at all. In front of her two, Callan and Gran sat glued to the scanner screens, aching to see something register upon them. But another hour passed with nothing. It was Jessie who made the first sighting. Hogan said finally, stepping clear of the suit, "And if you've got the equipment aboard, yeah, you must have it on a ship like this. Well, maybe we can do a bit of space welding, get my yacht patched up, and then I can get back in the race. You want to carry on after all this?" exclaimed Dillon, unbelievingly. "Sure," said Hogan, enthusiastically, "especially after what Gunston done to me." "And what has he done to you?" asked Callan. "That was no meteor that hit me," Hogan told her. "My computer logs got the scanner readings that show it was moving under some sort of control. A small spaceship disguised as a rock. The Gunston probably had the whole meteor swarm scattered by another ship. Just to cover up the fact that he wanted to get me knocked out, or knocked, of course. Right. The first thing we're going to do is go and pick up Gunston," growled Dillon angrily, "and throw him in the brig for breaking space regulations." "Oh, but you can't do that," protested Hogan. "I wouldn't want people saying I'm only one because my opponent was arrested. Besides what?" snapped Dillon. "Oh, nothing," Hogan said hurriedly, looking uncomfortable. "No repairs to your yacht until we know what that beside means," Dillon told him. Hogan looked round worriedly, hoping for some sign of support from the other members of the group, but found none. "Besides," he began, hastily, after the way I sabotaged his set of reserve sails before we left Earth, he won't be going very far." Dillon shook his head in disbelief. "Like I said, first we pick up Gunston and throw him in the brig for breaking space regulations, and then we throw you in there with him on exactly the same charge." "But," protested Hogan helplessly. "No buts," Dillon told him firmly. "The Martian races for 2086 are officially over as of now, and I don't care if you and Gunston fight each other all the way back to Earth." The end.